All right, which Gibson Les Paul Standard should you buy and why? Stick with me to the end because I'll give you the top 5 things to consider, and at the end I'll tell you my absolute favorites. Let's get to work. Hey, it's John here from Play and Trade Guitars. Smart choice shopping for a Gibson Les Paul Standard. That is the standard of standards, the iconic Les Paul, and there are a lot of variations and models to choose from on today's market. I'm going to run them down by price, but first I'm going to kick this off with 5 essential things you need to know about the differences between Les Pauls. Before I do that, if you're in the market for any gear, including a Gibson or anything else, click to buy new gear using our link. You'll find that pinned in the comments or down below in the description. If you're watching this on a TV, just scan this QR code and you can shop on your smartphone. It makes buying a new Gibson super easy with fast free shipping and easy payment plans, and you help me make these videos, so thanks for doing that. One more thing, this Gibson Les Paul Standard right over my shoulder is going to one of you when we hit 100,000 subscribers. To win that guitar, just hit subscribe now, turn on notifications, and sign up down below. All right, let's kick it off with 5 essential things you need to know when shopping for a Les Paul Standard. First, the neck shape. When shopping, you'll typically see a 50s or a 60s distinction. A 50s neck is going to be meatier and fatter, whereas a 60s neck will be slimmer and faster playing. Number 2 is going to be finish, and I'm ranking these in order of playability and the things you're really going to notice. You can find a Les Paul Standard with a satin finish, which is going to be more of a matte or eggshell, something like the Faded series, which I'll show you. Or typically what you expect on a true Les Paul Standard is going to be a full gloss nitro finish. All of these are made in America in the Gibson USA, Nashville, Tennessee plant. Number 3 is that beautiful top. And you can have a regular top, which is going to be maple with some flame in it. You can also have a plain top, which is going to be just a solid color, often metallic finish. You can actually save some money there, or even a gold top, which is absolutely beautiful, of course. Or you can dress up that maple top with that beautiful wood grain with a AAA flame top. And all that is going to change the price, and we'll talk about that soon. Number 4 is going to be choice of pickups. Typically, you're going to see Gibson Burstbuckers. Burstbucker 1 and 2 are typical in the 50s, whereas the Burstbucker 61s, my favorite Burstbuckers, are typical of the 60s models. You'll also find artist-specific and model-specific pickups. And let's not forget P90s. If you want P90s, which are old-school single-coil pickups, there are a few options too. But the standard is going to typically be associated with humbuckers. Number 5 is going to be artist models. If you already have an artist in mind, it might be the Adam Jones Les Paul Standard or Slash. That's going to make your choice a lot easier and narrow down your options as well. And then one more passing note on weight. Of course, these guitars are made out of wood, and the weight is going to vary. There are occasionally Les Pauls as light as 8 pounds or under, and there are occasionally Les Pauls as heavy as 11 pounds or more. Typically, the sweet spot is going to be somewhere around 9 pounds. And when you shop using our link for a Les Paul Standard, you'll be able to see pictures of the actual top of the guitar you're buying along with the weight, so keep that in mind. Now that you know that, let me show you what I consider to be the 3 essential Les Paul Standard models that everything else should be based on. The Les Paul Standard 50s, thicker, chunkier neck, Burstbucker 1 and 2 humbuckers. I'll also show you the Les Paul Standard 50s in a gold top with P90s. Biggest differentiator here is those single coil P90s versus the humbuckers. And then there's the Les Paul Standard 60s with that slimmer, faster playing neck, and the Burstbucker 61s, which happen to be my favorite humbuckers. That slimmer neck is the hallmark of 60s, so in a lot of these models, you'll see them listed as either 50s or 60s and humbucker or P90. That's kind of your starting reference point. All those are currently priced at $27.99. You can click on the link for current pricing or scan this QR code. And like I told you, across these, you'll be able to see the actual top and weight of each guitar. Now, let's run down all the Les Paul Standards by price. I'll tell you what to pay attention to, what makes them different, and at the end, I'll tell you my absolute favorites. Let's start now from low to high. All right, first of all, I have to point this out. I just told you that the Les Paul Standard 50s is $27.99. For a very limited time, you can get this limited edition Les Paul Standard 50s for $700 off. So I just want to point that out. You can scan this QR code or use our link and go straight here to get a Les Paul Standard 50s full gloss finish, ebony finish, $20.99, $700 off. There's also the Les Paul Standard 50s. This is the plain top with an ebony finish at $21.99. And I'm going to kick off this discussion with talking about the plain tops. The plain tops means that you won't see the wood grain of the maple top poking through. Instead, you'll have a solid painted finish. Particular favorites here, I love the Pelham Blue or the sparkling burgundy. That's like a metallic finish, and it's offered at $200 less than a regular standard. That's a great way to save money. It's still a full-fledged Les Paul standard. Now, one of my favorite series, which I consider to be overlooked, is the Faded series. That's available in 50s, 60s, there's actually even an SG stuck in there too. But the Faded series is unique because it has a satin finish instead of a full gloss finish. And many players actually prefer the feel of satin over full gloss. And because satin finishes require less production, it cuts down on price as well. It's still a nitro finish, it's just not gloss. So at $22.99, you can have a Les Paul Standard 50s or 60s in the Faded series, and I really recommend those. They have a breathing quality to them with that satin finish. They sound absolutely fantastic. They're otherwise the same as the regular Les Paul Standards. They're just $500 less. Okay, the Les Paul Deluxe is, I guess, technically not a standard, but it's going to be everything that a Les Paul Standard is with mini humbuckers. So I told you there's humbuckers in P90s. This is kind of the one exception. In the 70s, they had mini humbuckers, and this is a tribute to that era of Les Pauls. And the mini humbuckers sound unlike the P90s or the humbuckers. I will tell you, if you're looking to buy just one Les Paul Standard, I would not buy this one. I would use this as something that you add to an already established collection. This is new too, also $200 less, is the TV Yellow Mahogany top. So this is unusual in that typically a Les Paul Standard is going to feature a maple top, but here at $25.99 is the 50s, and strange enough, the 60s is $200 more. I don't know if that one's just more popular. I also would steer you away from those if you're looking for a one and done Les Paul Standard. Here's a beauty right here, and I think one of the best values. P90s really do sound fantastic. Biting attack with a singing voice in bridge position and a warm blanket of mellow tone with a fatness to it in neck. Really should own a guitar with P90s. And I can make a case for having a preference for P90s over humbuckers to the point that if you were looking for a one and done, I could see you buying just this Les Paul Standard 50s with P90s. $25.99 currently, and remember, it's just gonna have that thicker 50s profile neck. I love that in gold top, also available in tobacco burst. Using this link, you can get the exclusive Les Paul Standard Light, and this is just what it sounds like. It's a Les Paul Standard, but it's got a thinner body. So if you got a bad back or you want a Les Paul, but you're afraid of the weight, this at $25.99 is a good way to get around that. With a full-fledged Les Paul Standard, just it's lighter and thinner, so keep that in mind. All right, now we're getting back to that middle of the crop that I showed you. This is the Banner Les Paul Standard 60s at $27.99. I love that bourbon burst. Also the Les Paul Standard 50s in Heritage Cherry Sunburst or Tobacco Burst. These again, remember, $27.99. This is the reference point as a Les Paul Standard, and you can compare all the guitars, including the weight, when you click and view them by serial number here. Les Paul Standard 50s at $27.99. I showed you that beautiful Tobacco Burst, but you can also get it in gold top, and it's pretty iconic to see a 50 style Les Paul with a gold top. I am a sucker for that for sure. And I'll remind you, if you're in the market for any of these guitars or you want to see other finish options or current pricing or the payment plans, for example, this one you can do 12 months at $233 a month, no interest. It makes buying a new Gibson super easy. Scan that QR code or check out that links as we go here. All right, new thing too that Gibson has been doing is this custom color collection. And this is exactly like the Les Paul Standard 50s and 60s I showed you. It just has a whole bunch of extra finish options. Here's a blueberry burst, cherry, ocean blue, and then also again available in 60s. I love the cherry with the 60s. That's beautiful. You can see the wood grain popping through that cherry gloss finish. And some other unique finishes here that are only available in the custom color collection. This is brand new, it's limited edition. They're only gonna make 500 of each of these guitars. And you can check out the Double Trouble. And this is a Les Paul Standard, except they've faded the gloss finish a little bit. Don't confuse faded with satin finish. It's still full gloss, but they've kind of aged it out to look a little bit more vintage. And then the burst buckers are the same as the regular Standard, except they're uncovered here and you have the white bobbins. So you'll see this uncovered white bobbin humbucker look, which is pretty sharp. This is a new guitar, the Warren Haynes Les Paul Standard P90. Again, P90 in the name tells you it's got P90 pickups, but it's got a really great boost circuit in it as well. And these P90s are not your traditional single coil because they're actually hum-free P90s. They're actually essentially wrapped humbuckers the size of P90s. And I have a full demo on this guitar along with the rest of the Les Paul Standards that you can hear on Play and Trade guitars. So if one of these is piquing your interest, go watch the demo. It has full specs, playing, and the works. This one I just did recently. You can watch the video on the Warren Haynes Les Paul Standard P90. I was really impressed. When you add a AAA flame top, it's typically going to increase the price. However, many of the dealers have exclusive AAA tops, and using our link, you can get access to these with the 60s Les Paul Standard AAA flame top at the same same price. This is why it's important. $27.99, so it's the same price, but exclusively you can get a dressed up AAA flame top. That means that the magic of this maple top is gonna pop through with a much more flamey maple top, which is just absolutely beautiful and iconic, of course. The Mary Ford is relatively recent. It's a gold top essentially dressed up with this armrest and the pick guard. I tell you, unless you really care about that, I would just go with the regular gold top 50s Les Paul Standard, but cosmetically something interesting, a little more expensive though at $29.99. Here's the 50s Les Paul Standard AAA flame top at $29.99, and as I click through, there's a few of these AAAs at $29.99. That's kind of the price point. So if the typical standard is $27.99, usually it's a couple hundred extra bucks to get that AAA flame top, as you can see here. This one I really like. Here's a Fireburst 60s with that AAA flame. I love that. The contrast of that Fireburst finish is beautiful with that AAA maple wood grain. All right, I told you, be on the lookout for artist models, and the Kirk Hammett Greenie is really interesting. Kirk Hammett, why? Because he currently owns this guitar. Why is it called the Greenie? It was associated with Peter Green of Fleetwood Mac before Gary Moore owned it, and now Kirk Hammett owns the guitar. And this is based on that. What makes this guitar super special is that it has Greenie Bucker humbuckers, which do an out-of-phase middle sound, which is really unique. These pickups are really exciting, and this combination of a Les Paul is super unique. It's got kind of a satin finish on the body, so keep that in mind. And again, I don't know if this is gonna be your one and done Les Paul, but to add this to a collection, it's different enough from the rest of your Les Pauls, and I was really excited to play this one. This one keeps coming back to me as one of my favorites. $29.99, worth every penny, really impressed with the Greenie. Now, of course, Slash is so synonymous with Gibson Les Paul these days, and you can look at something like the Slash Les Paul Standard Appetite Amber, $29.99. There's a Victoria Gold Top, which is a little more, $31.99. And Slash just has a huge relationship, of course, with Gibson, so you can check that out if you're interested. Makes your selection a little easier if you have an artist in mind. Another artist here. This is unique in that it gives you a Les Paul Standard with Silverburst finish and has an uncovered, kind of hotter pickup in bridge. I'm gonna be very honest, I love Adam Jones, but this is less of an approximation of Adam Jones' guitar than actually the Epiphone version is at $14.99. The 1979 Adam Jones Les Paul Custom in the Epiphone lineup is the closest I've played to the custom shop version that they did a few years ago, and it's a better approximation of what Adam actually plays, in my opinion. That said, this is still gonna have a USA construction, and it'll give you a Silverburst on a Standard. It makes it kind of interesting, although I think it misses the mark a bit on Adam's actual Les Paul Custom. Slash Jessica at $31.99 is really gonna start to top out the price options here of the Les Paul Standards. And I'll tell you what, they do have a AAA Les Paul Standard Light. So if you like that idea of that light, thinner Les Paul Standard, but you want a flamed out top, they do have that option too, here in Honeyburst at $29.99. And then this really caught my eye, $30.99, so we're topping out in the price range, but check out this is super unique. It's exclusive, so you have to shop here to find this finish, but it's a quilted Honeyburst, quilted ocean water in blue. Although I think my preference is that quilted Honeyburst. That is just insanely cool. And again, you can compare all those guitars. If you ever hear the words R9 or reissue battered around, typically they're referring to a Gibson custom shop model. Here, for example, you have the 1959 Les Paul Standard. Murphy Lab, Tom Murphy is aging these guitars to look like a worn-in guitar, ranging from ultralight to ultra heavy. Ultralight here at $71.99. This would be referred on the street as an R9, reissue 1959. And you can see it's beautiful, but it's gonna be made in much smaller batch custom shop and a much higher price tag. These are really special guitars, but most of what I covered is going to be your typical Gibson USA production run guitars, which are fantastic and iconic in their own right. Just wanted to give you an idea of what people mean when they say R9 or when they talk about the Gibson custom shop here. You can shop there as well if you want to check out those options, scan this QR code, or just use our link. All right, with that is a rundown by price of the Gibson Les Paul Standards. You stuck with me to the end, so I'm gonna tell you my absolute favorites. Hit subscribe. We're giving away this Gibson Les Paul Standard over my shoulder when we hit 100,000 subscribers. And if you're shopping for gear, scan that QR code or use our link. All right, let's get started looking at my absolute favorites. You stayed with me, so here we go. If you want something that's more budget friendly and you like a satin finish, do not overlook the Standard 60s Faded. That was one of my favorites. And also, if you want to save a little money and you like the sound of P90s, single coil instead of humbucker, I think it's one of the best values to look at the Standard 50s P90, particularly with the gold top. I'm a huge sucker for that. And now I think I'll tell you my absolute kind of drum roll favorite here, The one that I think if you wanted one and done, in my current playing stance, the one that I would choose as a one and done Les Paul has got to be the Les Paul Standard 60s. Those 61 burst buckers are my favorite. I like the slimmer, faster playing neck. Actually, I used to prefer the thicker one. I will say it's personal preference, but I've come around to really liking the 60s profile with those 61 burst buckers, and this bourbon burst is just insane. I love that. Now remember, if you use this link, you can get access to these exclusive models, and this, for example, is a AAA flame top, so upgraded maple top, at the same price, so take advantage of that as well. All right, what did you think of this rundown? Are you in the market for a Les Paul Standard? Did this video help you? Hit like if it did, and if you're shopping, scan this QR code or use our links to shop. You're gonna get fast free shipping when you do that and easy payment plans. It makes buying a Gibson way easier, trust me. You also help me make these reviews. So if you enjoy playing trade guitars, hit subscribe so you can be in it to win this Gibson Les Paul Standard over my shoulder, and use that link to shop. I really appreciate it. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What are your favorite Les Pauls? What's in your collection, and which one will you buy next? Can't wait to talk to you in the next video. See you in the comments, and see you in the next video. For Playing Trade Guitars, I'm John. Keep playing. See you next time.